Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Damron with Trash Ass Gamers bringing you another veteran Elder Scrolls Online dungeon guide. This is for Scalecaller Peak, which is part of the Dragon Bones DLC. You can find this dungeon in Stormhaven if you have that DLC or ESO Plus. This dungeon's a pretty difficult dungeon, especially on hard mode, but we'll go through all the mechanics. If you haven't seen any of these videos before, I will kind of fast forward through the ads and we'll focus mainly on the boss mechanics, and I'll try to show you everything that you need to know about the dungeon if you're having any difficulty with this dungeon. Um, I will keep the playthrough complete, so you will see the entirety of the dungeon, but we'll kind of speed up through the ads. So let's bang out the first set of ads and I'll meet you guys at the first boss. Alright, so we're rolling up on our first boss here. This is Orzun the Foul-Smelling and Rinaerus the Rancid. This is a dual boss, so they're two ogres. And the main thing is you really need to keep the ogres separate. It's better for the tank to take on the Foul-Smelling, kind of pull him to the outer portion of the arena and just hold aggro, because Rinaerus the Rancid isn't really going to move. And what you want to do is you want to split up your DPS, because you really need to kill them at the same time. And they're going to do a few different things. So one, you're going to see these ice shards kind of flowing around the ground. And eventually, the foul-smelling boss is going to fire an attack that generates a small AoE that is around you, small little circle. And if that circle reaches its maximum and you haven't frozen yourself in one of those frozen ice things that are floating around, that's an instant kill. Now, Rinaerus the Rancid, he will kind of stand in the middle. He'll generate a large AoE around him, but he also has a one-shot mechanic that you're going to see here, in which he generates these large ice pillars in the map. And you have a very short period of time between you need to get behind these ice pillars before he throws a massive ice ball. And if you're not behind a pillar, again, that will be a one-shot kill. Also, Orzun, he does have a pretty strong heavy attack, so tank, you really need to hold on to that aggro. And then Rinaerus, he also will kind of start ground and pounding the ground and generating skeevers to come into the fight, and you can interrupt that. He'll bring in some skeevers, but you can actually interrupt that before he brings any into the fight. And also, you don't want the two bosses to overlap. If they overlap, they will generate a large poison AoE that can kill you very, very, very fast. So you need to keep them separate, and then you also need to kill them at about the same time. So we're going to move on just a little bit, and we're coming up to the next boss here. Alright, so let's go ahead and start talking about this boss a little bit. You're going to notice all these orbs kind of float around on the outer part of the map. Now, when we're fighting the boss, those are going to be very important, but because periodically they're going to come down into the fight, and they're called orbs of stone, and they will target a specific player. And if it gets close enough to that player, it'll turn them to stone. And Doylemish will then fire a shot at that person if you don't free them with your synergy Y plus B to take them out. So Doylemish Ironheart isn't really that tough himself. It's really those stones and the adds that he brings into the fight that make it difficult. So you're going to see this Orb of Stone. Anytime you see that, you really need to take that out as fast as possible. Keep your DPS up on Doylemish, because really he doesn't have too much health and he doesn't really cause that much devastating attacks. He does have a large heavy attack that can take the tank out if the tank is not really paying attention. But other than that, he's fairly easy as a boss. What's going to kill you is those orbs of stone. So again, you're going to see it. You see how it targeted me there. It generates a small AoE. The closer you are to it, that AoE starts to build. And if that hits its maximum, it's going to turn you to stone. And basically, you're going to see that here. An ally's turned to stone over in the corner. So I run up there, I use my synergy, and I free them. If you don't free them fast enough, Doylemish will do an instant kill shot on them. So that's really all the mechanics there are about this boss, but it's a little, it's easier to talk about than do, because it can get very hectic very, very, very fast if you're not staying on top of those orbs. The main priority in that fight is to take out the orbs as quickly as possible. As long as you do that, you should be okay. And make sure you guys are all kind of standing close to each other so you can free anybody that's turned to stone before Doylemish can take them out. And if you are the targeted player, make sure you communicate, I'm targeted, and kind of back away from the orb and let it, kind of kite the orb while the other DPS take it out. As long as you do that, that fight should prove you little problems, and we'll get moving on to the next boss. Alright, so next up is the easiest boss in the game, thanks to the fact that you can actually pull the boss over into this corner here. So the tank is going to stay on this little ice glacier that's floating right in the middle of the two canyons, and then Matriarch Aldis will come here. And what makes this really easy is that when you pull him, or her here I should say, you don't really have to worry about the lemonids that spawn in the back. If you were to fight the boss in the main arena in there, you have to take out the lemonids as fast as possible because they shoot up, these geysers that do a lot of damage and can kill you very quickly. But pulling the boss over here actually makes the fight extremely easy. You can kind of stay back. You don't even have to worry about them at all. Just keep your DPS, burn the Matriarch down, and that's the easiest fight in the dungeon due to the fact that you can fight her over there. But if you do fight him in this area, keep in mind that you need to stay out of the water. That will damage you. And if you fight in this area of the fight, then you need to take out the lemonids as quickly as you can. So moving on. Alright, so we're rolling up onto our next boss here. A few things you need to take note of are the grates that are around the ground. This is important for the tank because periodically throughout the fight, an AoE will kind of generate around one of those, and if he doesn't get on top of that, almost immediately it starts to fire poison shots around to other players that will kill them very fast. Very similar to the volcano that spawns on Golbarok and Bloodroot Forge. So you really need to kind of pay attention to that. Make sure you zoom out your field of vision and keep an eye on those grates and communicate and say, hey, the grate's over here, blah blah. So as long as you're communicating to get on top of that grate, which you can see there to the left, the tank's going to go and stand on that and basically protect everybody else from the fight. Now, Plague Concocter Mortieu will do a kind of a cross-shaped fire attack that you saw there. That can really hurt you pretty quickly. And the thing that he does, the mechanic that you need to know is every once in a while, he'll kind of create this poison look to the room, and there'll be someone over that will be making a potion to kind of save you from this poison that he has kind of devastated the room with. And he will let you know what to kill. Say, oh, I need imp, or I need strangler, or I need beetle. He'll tell you what enemies you need to kill, and as soon as you kill that specific enemy, he'll create a potion, and then that potion will get put onto the ground, and you'll see that here in a minute it's going to cleanse you of whatever the effect that the poison that the concocter has put on you. So if you stand in that, then you'll be cleansed, and he'll kind of be down, and this is really the time that you can do the most DPS to the boss. He'll be down, and then when he stands back up, he's going to bring a little buddy into here with him, Morteu's guard, which he actually has a very strong heavy attack that can kill you in one shot if you're the DPS or a low health character. So make sure you take out that guard as quickly as possible. Now, most likely, he does have 10 million health, so most likely it's going to take you a few rounds of this, but it doesn't change. Okay, that exact strategy is the same for the entire fight. He's going to create a poison in the room. You need to listen to what your guy's telling you to kill so he can make your potion and cleanse you. Go to the cleanse, kill him, And then the guard will come, and you want to kill him as fast as possible, and just rinse and repeat. So it's not going to change. It's not going to get any more difficult. And the tank really be on the lookout for that grate. You know, you need to stand on that grate when that AoE comes, because if you're not on that, that will devastate the other players rapidly. Now it will, like I said, it will take you probably, 2 to maybe 3 rounds of that cycle to kill him, but that's okay. It's not really a difficult fight. It's just understanding kind of what's going on. So once we kill him, we're going to be moving on to the final boss of Scalecaller Peak, and I think this is one of the hardest hard modes in the game. It's going to give you a lot of trouble. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, so I'm going to try to highlight all that for you. But there's a lot of things that are very different from the normal mode. And the first off is when you go to hard mode, instead of everybody just running to a shield when the dragons generate the poison, there's actually going to be a Frost Atronach, a limited, and a stone orb in the fight in hard mode. And when you kill each of them, they will generate an AoE or a small thing that kind of floats around the map. So you're going to see that ice that's floating around the map, the geyser from the limited's always in the same spot, and then the laser from the stone orb also kind of floating around the map. And the key to thing with those is you must be inside that when the poison phase happens, which we'll talk about later. And what's different in hard mode is that there's only one per player. Only one person can be in each. And I'm going to show you what happens if you miss it, right? So one person needs to go to the ice, one person needs to go to the geyser, one piece needs to go to the stone orb, and one person goes to the shield. So I missed it there. I died. And also make sure you read your scold for hard mode. So there's one for each. So communication is key. Before the fight starts, you need to designate who has what. And if someone accidentally goes into one of those prior to the poison phase, then that means you have one less and that person is guaranteed to die. The only one that will respawn is the stone orb. So if you accidentally take that, that's okay. It will respawn. It has a little bit of a timer, so hopefully it happens to be back when the poison phase happens. You can always slow down your DPS as well, if necessary. So the main thing is with the which ones to choose. It's easier for the tank to always take the geyser because it's right there. You know, he's really focused on keeping aggro the boss, keeping the boss as well up near the dragon heads because that's where the poison comes from. So it's good for the tank to take the geyser and everybody else split up for the other things. Now, what you're going to see is what the phase is here, this poison phase, which happens every, once in a while, several times throughout the fight. She is going to kind of generate these frozen enemies. There's 3 of them. That's also different in hard mode. There's only 2 in normal mode, but she generates 3 of them, and you have a short amount of time to kill those. So you want to split up, and also you want to kind of designate some areas prior to the fight. So I'll say I'll always go to the door, or I'll take north, or I'll take the left or the right. Whatever directionality you want to use to say I got this area when that phase comes, because you have a very limited amount of time to kill all 3 of them before it will freeze everybody on the map, and that's also an instant wipe. So again, you're going to see that here. We're going to take the enemy down, Zaan the Scalecaller. We're going to take her down so she spawns the frozen simulacrums, or simulacrum. I'm not really even sure how you say it. We kill them very quickly. Everybody runs to their respective zones of protection, and the poison fires from the dragon heads across the entire map. And if you're not inside that, it's an instant death. So also, every time that happens, immediately the Frost Atronach will spawn and the Limited will spawn. You want to kill the Limited first. All DPS on the Limited take that down because that has a very strong attack. And after the first phase of the frozen simulacrums, the dragon heads will randomly spew poison into a direction that they're facing. So you really want to make sure you have your field of vision back as far as possible so you can see those poisons coming out. Right here, you see that. I need to get out of that immediately. Now, it is kind of crappy because sometimes, you feel like you're out of it and you still die. There is, it's terrible. I don't know why they've created it that way, but on your screen you will be out of the AoE and still sometimes die. So just make sure you get out of there as fast as possible to avoid that from happening. The Frost Atronach himself doesn't really do too much damage, doesn't really do too many attacks that you need to worry about when the ads spawn. So make sure again you're taking out that limit as quickly as possible. Now Zaan herself, she'll do a few attacks. She does do a spinning AoE that pretty much will kill the DPS in one hit. So the tank really has to maintain aggro during this fight. Another thing she'll do is she'll target a player in which she will launch these waves of fire at that player, and that's actually a good time for revives to happen. You can really recover because that player can kind of step away from everything that's going on, and if someone's down, that's a really good time to revive. And then also she can do the Zaan attack, which she'll generate this large AoE around her, and when she does that, every time right after she does that, she's going to fire a beam from her helmet, and that is going to basically pull you up into the air and bring your health down, and someone needs to come in front of that beam and block it to save you. So that's all the mechanics. I know it's a lot. Feel free to rewind, listen again. It's a very difficult fight. It's a lot to take in. There's a lot of RNG. You might want to watch that portion of the video several times. It's a very, very, very difficult fight. Totally appreciate that. But if you keep going, I know you guys can do it. Just keep banging it out, and eventually you will get that done, and you will beat the hard mode of Scalecaller Peak. You'll be on your way to finishing that dungeon and getting all the challenges for it. So let's take a look at the monster set real quick, the Zaan set. It's actually a very good set for mag DPS characters, so it's going to give you additional spell crit, and when you damage a nearby enemy with a light or heavy attack, you have a 20% chance to create her beams, of fire, that Zaan attack that deals 4,200 damage every second for 5 seconds, and also increases by 50% every second. But it's only within 8 meters, so it's actually a really good dummy set, and a really good set if you're planning on being very, very close to the boss. So I hope this guide helped you. If it did, feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.